Hello and welcome to the Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 238 for Friday, April 3rd, 2026, Good Friday. Today we'll be covering Find My Action, plus anything else that you want to talk about. This is a weekly community gathering that we do Fridays, 10 a.m. Central Time, and it's an opportunity to get together to talk about what's going on with the Plantain App product and Plantain App as a whole. And it's a all skill levels welcome. We hope everybody that uses Plantain App would join us in this effort. We record all these, put them on YouTube. You can get to that at youtube.com/plantainapp. We'll run this agenda, or most Fridays we do. We start with an introduction, say hello, and then we'll go around the campfire. We'll cover anything you want to talk about, first call on anything submitted, and then we'll dip into some of these other areas like things that were added to our campfire website, as well as community and feature requests and things like that. After an hour or so, we'll go into our Afterglow segment. That's where we turn off the recording and hang out for a little while longer, just engage on a personal level. So we do hope that you'll join us in that. You can submit questions and topics in advance to support@plantainapp.com. I'll do a little bit of research and then put them on the agenda. Hello, one and all. Hello, one.
Good morning, Dale. How you doing?
I am well. I was in the process of just starting to record my spiel on the hope that anyone that showed up would not have to sit through that, and then there you were. So hello.
Oh, hello. So sorry, I don't have a first call. I was just making sure you weren't lonely today.
Well, I appreciate
Actually,
that.
we always learn quite a bit. Always happy to be here.
Well, I think there's a good chance that people are taking Good Friday off, and good for them. It doesn't happen to be a Plantain App holiday, but it is an important one.
Hmm.
So since you've saved me the trouble of asking if you came with anything, I think I'm going to jump right to a topic or two that could be of interest, and then I'm not tied to going for an hour. If we come to the end and it's the end, then it's the end. But here we go. Let's do a few
All right, please
things.
proceed. Thank you.
Um, I was going to point out we have some documentation in progress that is having to do with SQL deadlocks. So one of our clients upgraded into version 1.28 and became aware of the idea that uh, I think we started this in late version 127, but certainly in 128. Every time that you do a run SQL action, it is now wrapped in a transaction automatically. And so I know that we've talked about this change in behavior. And the good news then is that because they're wrapped in transactions, becomes an all or nothing kind of thing. If something fails in the middle of that, you end up getting a rollback automatically. But and I know that we mentioned that, but the reason that we did that had to do with this was back sometime last summer. We were having clients that, particularly larger clients, that were having SQL deadlocks, and so we got to the bottom of it and determined that it was the best for the product to wrap everything in transactions. And it solved the deadlocks for them. So this week we had another client that did an upgrade, and all of a sudden they were encountering SQL deadlocks, and it came from another source. But the fact that we had made this change um, negatively impacted their scenario, and so as we got to the bottom of what was going on with that, it became evident that we need to document what's going on with this, what changes that we made, and more importantly, that there's some good guidelines for low code when you're doing things at volume that holding locks for a long time. So here in that scenario, we had a lot of users doing a lot of different things, and depending on the order of things, you could end up with locks on one side and locks on another side, and they would be deadlocked. And so then SQL has to pick somebody who lives and somebody who does not succeed, and so that can be a mess. So anyway, it became evident that documentation was necessary. I have a document that I could share. It's something that I came up with. I'm asking our subject matter experts internally to review it and make sure I'm telling the truth. But um, if you want, anybody needs an early version, I'd be happy to provide that. Do any of you have any questions about that?
Well, Dale, that's interesting. I didn't realize about the deadlocks. So that is good to know. I like to keep stuff like that in mind while I'm doing my work.
Yeah. So when we actually publish it, we'll go over it and show some of the techniques that you can use to um, keep out of trouble with deadlocks. And also, the client in question came up with a setting within SQL Server to be less aggressive with locking. So think about if you were to do a select that had a big record set and so that you could update it and you do that select by default, SQL was locking those thousands of rows, and then if anybody else needed to touch those were locked. Uh, and so if you have some of these long-running queries, you get into that. He found a setting that locked less aggressively, and it solved all of his deadlocks. So there's kind of this potentially global solution. It comes with some trade-offs, but also um, there's better techniques that you can employ. So we'll go over all that when it comes up. I haven't, let's take a look at the community forum. I don't know if we have anything going on out here that hasn't been addressed or is interesting to talk about. So this is an older topic from a couple weeks ago. So but let's see if let's make sure it's been answered. Yeah, so this was a question on our older product, the DNN Sharp products. Um, and just the idea that if they were licensed and you want to move hosts, that's not a problem as long as the domain name stays the same. But our licensing server for the older products is no longer active, so there's no way to move a license to a different domain anymore. We used to allow that in limited circumstances or with fees or whatever, but now it's not even possible. So the world is Plantanap now. All right, moving on. Things I want to talk about. So here we go. The same client that had issues with deadlocks also had errors showing up in the logs. It was moving quite a big site, and there were errors in the logs saying such and such an action is failing. And if we give an action by ID, we give an action ID, and then don't really provide you much of a way to find it. So my campfire contribution for this week is uh, a form that helps you find those. And I haven't actually made it as a contribution in the list yet. It's just something that's available. And under our configuration page, and I'll explain this. This is another thing that I think will probably be real interesting, could be of interest, but I have created a plugins page because I have a mechanism that can be used to distribute these things. But the Find Action by ID page is one of these, and so you can type an ID and say Find Action, and it'll tell you where it is. Um, out on out here on Campfire as well, there was a contribution much earlier by one of our faithful members that had something very similar to this. But as Plant and App has evolved, uh, the place where we store this information within the database has moved. And so the tool that he provided would have some, uh, it worked at the version that he released it, which was, I think, might have been version 118 or even earlier. We're now at version 1.27, so, or 1.28 rather. So things have changed a lot in that time. Might have worked a little bit up until version 1.27, but we moved everything in version 1.28. And when I say moved everything, previously actions existed in a number of tables throughout the database, reflecting our individual products that our history were coming from a bunch of individual products. And now we've taken a unified approach. Actions all exist within one table, and they're used in a number of places. So think about forms have action stacks, and and buttons on listings have action stacks. Workflows and APIs and automations all have action stacks associated with them, but all the actions now live in one place. So, are you with me so far?
Um, yes, I'm with you so far.
Excellent. So, see, I'm going to put you on the spot from time to time just to make sure I'm not alone here.
I'm here for you, Dale.
Thank you. So, going one level deeper into the problem, not only did actions exist in lots of tables, but then we have the execute actions action, which stored actions, if I have it right, so it stored them in JSON format inside of wherever that it was used. And so very non-normalized kind of structure. So we settled on, and let me see if I can do this real time here. We can take a peek into the database. In the PAA namespace, we settled on putting all of these inside of PAA actions. So your first place to look, if you are interested in my system has 4,200 actions, this Campfire site has. And now we can see there's an action ID and there's messages, descriptions, the type. So this is a redirect to URL action. This is the name we call it internally, by the way, not necessarily the name you know it by. You can see the condition that's associated with it, when it was modified. So it's all very normalized, and they all live here. But the main thing to know about where it's used is the action stack ID. So um, every place that you could use an action has an action stack ID. And so then the trick is knowing, how do I find where action stack ID 1563 is? And that certainly is the problem. So this is the problem solved by this tool. If you're looking for an action and you can give it an ID, it'll tell you where it found it. If it's a page, it will have a hyperlink so you can go to the page. It shows you the module ID and what button. So in this case, it's a form and it's on the login button. Uh, yeah. So if we were to illustrate that a little bit, if I were to go to, I'm gonna find an action and prove that this thing works. So we're looking at this is a form, and if we look at the form definition, we see we have a couple of buttons here. And so under the view contribution button, we have an action 287. If we go to our tool and say I want 287, it'll tell you that it's on the home page, module ID 507, which we see right here. And it's on the View Contributions button, which is exactly where we found it. So if you have an idea, this is just the first rough tool that gets us there, right? It you go from an ID to a place. It can be any of the places that we use it within Implement app. It will find it, and then at least to tell you where to go.
That's really nice, Dale. I really like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty normal for someone else to look at it and go, "Oh, what if you did?" So I apologize
No,
for
no.
saying this, but since you've got the module ID, you might put the module title right next to it.
Uh,
I have some pretty busy pages with a lot of stuff on it, so it would help.
you're absolutely right, and that would be a great enhancement, and that's something that we can certainly look at. And there's also room for enhancement. If you go back to the tool that our friend Ben contributed long ago, uh, it would be possible, for example, to click a button um, to open the form in question or the listing in question.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
uh,
In edit mode?
yep.
Yeah.
So there are definitely room for enhancements to this, but at least I wanted to put a tool out there so that you could find them. That's the first
Hmm.
problem.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
I'm going to do a workflow here just to illustrate the deeper problem. So this is um, find action demonstration workflow, and if we had uh, an execute actions, and inside of that we had a for each list entry that we had an action. Um, Create a tokens, setting the value of a. It doesn't really matter what we're doing here. I'm just illustrating the problem. So this we'll call we'll give it a description, and then oh my goodness, what happened? Oh, I guess I didn't get that applied very well. I would think I was halfway through. So this will be a this is set a value, and we'll set a equal to a, and let's see if I can. Oh, I got it in the wrong spot here. I managed to get it in the on error. Well, we'll play with that as well. So if I save all that, this is workflow 160, and so now we have an action and an error action, and so let's now look up it. So let's say that error that item number 8254 was throwing in error. If I go to the tool and say 8254, it tells me that this action appears inside another action. We can see it's an apply tokens action. It has a description of set a value, and my find parent has lit up here. So I'm going to click find parent. We start a list of child, but then uh, that is an action list. And it's also, we can see the description loop through my stuff, and it's of type execute actions on entity list. That's our internal name for that thing. So again, we can continue to click Find Parent until it turns out that it's this workflow that we have a link to, and we can open the workflow directly from the tool, and we can follow it where it's inside of loop through my stuff and its set of values. So I guess top level action. Oh yeah, top level action is here. Um, and so we can find loop through my stuff and set a value. So if you use another good reason to use these descriptions now is that that becomes searchable. Um, so this is only only handling one use case where we're going from an action ID and trying to find it. But we just got off a conversation internally now that we have, I mean, this tool is available and you can download it and use it and find your stuff if you need to. But we're headed towards being able to incorporate this type of thing inside the product. And we're trying to figure out what that looks like. But if you think about a more traditional pro coding tool, VS Code or whatever, to be able to find something, where did I, where have I used this workflow? Where have I used the domain name as a hard coded instead of uh, as a token so that the thing becomes more transportable? Um, Being able to answer those kinds of questions now becomes possible. Or look up in a description. Maybe you use a tag in your descriptions to note that, uh, for example, I have often put a to-do tag in my descriptions when I haven't finished something. So to be able to look for all your to-dos as you're a developer, you've left notes that you want to be able to find all those and get rid of it, finish the work in that area, that kind of thing. So all that becomes available to us
I'm
as
sorry, Dale, how did you get from this that looks up action IDs to looking up other words throughout the app? Was
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm brainstorming a little bit or telling you where we want to go with
Oh,
this.
okay, cool.
But if you go back to, let's see if I think I closed it out. So we'll go back there again. So these were just my examples. Uh, But if we go back to looking to, I mean, you can answer this question for yourself very simply. So I have a description someplace that says top level action. It doesn't matter what we're looking for. If, and this again is version 128 specific, but in SQL console, PAA actions, uh, and I'm going to actually do, uh, the description of actions show up here. So if you're looking for something like to-dos, you could now do a SQL saying where um,
I gotcha.
so you could find your actions that way and then use this to find where it's happening. So
And what if you wanted to search for a word, like your example that you said out loud was something like where you use the name of a table or something
so
like that?
great question. Where are we keeping things? I'm going to open up a new SQL console so that we can explore that too and not lose our place in case we want to come back. There's this other table, action parameters. And so we can explore that one a little bit. And again, I'm going to do order by ID descending because we'll find the things that were recently added to this table. so we can see that there was like every parameter within a uh, within an action has a name. So in the past, we stored all this stuff as JSON, and now we store it in this normalized table. So if you were looking at action 8256, wherever I defined that, if you remember, I set the value A equal to AAA. You can find that by looking at this particular setting within action parameters. So if you wanted, for example, to find out where you used, we can look for, let's try finding, um, so in these particular actions, we can see that um, we have used campfire.plantandapp.com in a number of parameters, and we would have to, and this is, if we're looking for the URL particularly, I should probably be more selective in my query, but used in a lot of headers, and I can't remember where these are. We could go hunt down action ID 9753 and figure out what this is, but and then it's being used in you can see it in a URL. So does that answer your
Okay.
question? Here's a
Yes, and
good one.
there's the action
Let,
ID right there. Look at that.
so let's investigate 7857. The action, excuse me, the action ID is 1272. And somewhere in here, we have a hard-coded campfire.plantandapp.com show page after it fully loads. So if we go back to our tool and look for it, it's on a page, module ID 1629, and it's a button, reload page, to see the effect. So if we go to this page, and look
I
at
think it just did it. Yeah.
I think it just did too.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to look at the curtains form. So 1629 is the module ID. And again, you're right, we don't really have a great link to that, but we get in there. Here's the reload page to see the effect button. And in the redirect to URL, it's hard coded.
Mm-hmm.
campfire.plantandapp.com. So if we were looking to make this transportable, we would change this to be something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
now, see if I broke your contribution here. Nope, still works. But now it's, yeah. So this SQL, the PAA action parameters, is a place to get to the parameters of your actions. And if if you're looking for some particular keyword within all that, you should be able to find it that way, and then go back to the action ID. Find that. We actually, just for fun, let's look for action ID. Let's change this to be that particular one. We can now see that it's here. We can see the change. And by the way, it would be entirely possible to do a SQL update against this table and make that change globally. There's which again would be another great use case for what we should eventually do in our product to improve it that way. Just a word of warning that caching becomes involved when you make a change So we could make this change, uh, and then you'd probably have to refresh cache in order to be able to see it in the UI.
Mhm.
So that could be this could be a fun way to find things and fix things, and it becomes possible again at 128. I'm uh, I'm kind of curious about these headers, and I'm going to go look. I don't know where we're using this, so I'm kind of just curious now. What is this? So there's an API name called API test log that does a post method. And if we look at that, we're looking for 2727. We look at our actions, 2727 has a header. So
Mhm.
that's interesting. Okay. Um, this is probably a API test log. It's probably one that we create as part of it's a automatically created API for when we're evidently putting the header in there. So that was interesting to try and see why those all are like that. Which also might say if you're using that functionality and you're trying to transport an API, you might have to just double check that it generates correctly, or might need to force it to regenerate through entities in order to get that to replace. Anyway,
So Dale, with this new contribution that you just built, have you caught a bug towards developing it any further? Like kind of organizing it like as a form that you look for anything anywhere kind of thing, like the previous contributor had made?
um, I yeah, we'll see what we have time for. I know that I mean the first thing when I showed it to our product team, the response I got was we need to figure out how to put this into our product directly
Sure.
instead of as
Uh-huh.
an add-on. So um, I don't know whether I do have the bug personally, but uh, where the effort will be spent is yet another thing. Um, but okay, so do any of you have any questions about this thing before I go on to something else? Because I think I have something cool. Again, you ask about what do I have a bug for? Uh, um, without objection, I'm going to go on. Um, as a support guy, I think that there is need for something like this. The ability for us to publish some things and I'm calling the concept plugins, that that we could distribute and that you could get easily without having to do a bunch of work. And I'm stalling here because I'm waiting for there's a proof of concept for this plugins module that was firing up behind the scenes, and so that's why it took a minute to load. But I have published some plugins that this uh, find action by ID is one of them, but there's also a health check one. So, in the spirit of let's show you what's about to happen, if I look in plugins and underneath plugins, notice there's just one page, find action by ID. If I say I want to install the health check for version 128, it tells me what it is, tests a variety of settings. It lets me pick a page where I'm going to put it, which I'm going to put it in under plugins, and it's going to be called the Health Check V128 page. When I install it, it's going to go out and get that form and install it for me. So now I have a new page that is a health checker, and I can run the test and it'll tell me what it thinks about this particular site. So the Campfire site, it's checking things that need to be correct, and it's telling me that maybe we're a little bit low, or that the log size is pretty big, and it's over 10% of the log size of the database is over 10% of the data size. So maybe that's something that needs to be cleaned up. But other than that, it's telling me about minimums and maximums. And so this, I with a couple of clicks, added a health checker and ran it. And so what we get out of that then is this is another page that got added in under plugins. I can go back to my plugins page, and I got another one called Workflow Performance Test. And I may have talked about this one in the past, but this is something that you can pick a workflow and run it lots of times. Here's all my workflows on the system. Let's see if I have one that I don't. I'm not going to pick one. But if you pick a workflow, the definition of this particular thing is you can't provide it any parameters. So you just need to pick a workflow that doesn't require any inputs, either it defaults or doesn't have any inputs, and then you can click the test button. It'll tell you how long it took to run 100 iterations and the iterations per second. And the idea is that if you have a workflow and you want to test it, and it can be tested that way without breaking things in your system, you can say, okay, this took this long to do. If I recoded a different way, maybe I can improve the performance. So some handy dandy tools that you can install. But this is something that I'm starting to use, and may start to use to distribute some support things. I'm kind of my plan is to lobby the product team to get my plugin installer to be included with the distribution of the product, so that if you want a particular tool, you can just click on it and install it and go, rather than having to go figure out how to do the work.
So
Yeah.
that makes a page, the right form on the page. Does it do everything else, like create the workflows or the API or whatever?
Well, the definition of what it does at the moment is just up to the point where it creates the page and creates the form. This is form only, and the form has to be self-contained. It can't have a workflow associated with it, because we are low. All this is done within low code, right?
Hmm.
The what the this plugin module, this plugin installer, and so we have, for example, an action that lets you uh, install a form, or we could do a grid as well, but we don't have a mechanism for transporting workflows or automations or APIs. We can import and export those through the UI, but there isn't a built-in action that transports those yet. So
Hmm.
right now, it's just if you can build a form and put it on my uh, proof of concept server, it would be installable for anyone.
Okay.
Yep. Um, this and even in the installer itself can be, there's the plugin installer. If I have an update to the plugin installer, you can even install that, because it's just a form like anything else. One of the things that I took advantage of that uh, I didn't really realize was there till I went looking for it. I needed a place to uniquely identify the modules that I was installing on your system, so that if we wanted to update them, and there is this thing called, nope, it's not here. I'll find it here in a second. There's a thing called module moniker. Have you ever used this?
I don't think I have. Unique identifier for the module.
And so I have identified the modules on my proof of concept server. I've given them unique identifiers. And so when they install on your system, they come in with this module moniker. And so what that means is, let me find my way here, that when you pick one, it knows that it's already been installed because it can find it on your system. And if
Mm-hmm.
you click update, it updates that one. It doesn't care what page it exists on already. Or you could even have it installed in multiple places and it'll update all of them. And it just does it by the moniker. So,
That's very nice. Yeah.
um, do you have any interest in seeing the proof of concept system?
Well, yeah.
You get to drive today because, well, you're the only one here. So this is my support add-ons. That's again my site that other thing is pointing to, and I'm going to sign on to it. And so all of these things just exist as forms within this site, and again, it has the moniker associated with it. So if I were to look at the settings for this particular one, we nope, I lied. Monikers exist in my available forms setup. So the it's here. The forms installer has this E6 blah blah blah. But by having a unique ID, that's how I distribute it anyway. So I can just this form definition edits just like any other form. And if I were to update it, for example, to change this to say April 3rd, revision A, it exists now on my server with that change to it. If I go to the Campfire site and shoot, I've got my yesterday's version. If I go to the plugin installer and update it, it'll go out and get that form definition, and now all the changes the form is completely updated. So I would think, in addition to, I'm thinking of it in terms of a support tool, being able to distribute something that
Well, yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
don't have, and just make it easy for me to set up something and distribute it. But if you, this also potentially could be, if you have a site and a master site, you could do your code in a master site, and then as you're making changes, I change this module and that module and that module, mark them in the data. And if you had a mechanism like this, you could go to your production site and say, go get all my form changes in one bulk thing. So rather than working off to the side and trying not to bother your production site, you're working on a dev site that you flow to the master site. I would love to see this expanded to, again, to all the other types of content that we have, APIs and workflows, things like that. But we're limited at the moment to listings and forms. And this is a Dale Warner project, not a Plant and App project, which is to say the official direction that Plant and App has been trying to go for years is to use a GitHub repository for these things and to be able to commit them from a development environment and then retrieve them from your production environment or staging environment, the next environment.
Hmm.
But in the since that story is incomplete, this is a technique that will work for that while we're waiting for that one.
Similarly, Dale, I've got a page settings, that is the name that I've assigned it, form that I like to put on each of the sites that I'm working on. And
Mhm.
I'd like it to be on each of the pages that I work on a lot. Um, so since I have multiple sites, the same functionality that I want on most of them, your tool of being able to distribute it and update it across sites would come in
Mhm.
very handy.
Yeah. So do you when you put it on a site, I assume you put it on a page and then put references to it on the other pages?
Exactly.
So it still only exists one time. This tool would actually allow it to exist separately if you needed it to, but and update. But I'm
Hmm.
trying to remember. It's been a while since I've looked into this, so I was going to look at the actions that are involved here. Um, the update button loops through all of the ones that have that moniker, and when it finds one, yeah, we have this import module content action.
Hmm.
So so long as you have a module ID and the module definition that was exported from some other system, and that's what we're doing here. This module definition is coming from the
The master.
the master server
Hmm.
I think we have a export module uh, content, um, and that's probably fun to look at too. So I'm back on my support server. I have in APIs this form by unique ID API endpoint, and it's using export module content and returning that in an API. So the API, so my remote system, in this case Campfire, is calling an API saying, tell me about this unique ID, and we're getting back the full module definition export
Hmm.
from here, which then can be imported onto the other one. So
Makes sense.
the tools
Hmm.
are there for you to be able to build it, what you were talking about,
Hmm.
right? You build a master and you've got to identify what is this tool. If I were doing like if I were doing it, I would do it through a table to say so that you could have multiple tools, not just hard code it for one, and then
Hmm.
have your remote thing pick them up. It does challenge you a little bit too that you have to when you're doing something like that, you have to think in terms of um, some actions use module IDs, or some of your JavaScript might use module IDs, and you have to make sure your coding includes module colon module ID
Sure.
instead of
Yeah.
a hard-coded module ID because it's going to be different on the remote system. But that's a pretty minor thing to do. So that's what I've been up to, and that is the completion of it. Is there anything else you're
Well,
doing?
yeah. Number of tools. Those are really fun. I appreciate tools. I build them myself, and so I appreciate the effort that goes into them and the usefulness that you get out of them.
Uh, yeah, I believe that. Yeah, just trying. In this case, it's tools, but anything that you can do to leverage effort. It's one thing if you're doing a one-off site for a client that you work directly on it. But if you have a model where you're doing you're distributing the same, let's say it's a CRM system to, or your CRM system is a core part of what you're doing for many clients, different sites, to build it so that you can distribute it
Hmm.
and keep your effort down. I mean, something like this would make it fully possible, for example, for your system, for your remote systems. You could have 10 CRM systems deployed and have them wake up every day and say, is there anything new from Mark? Go pull
Hmm.
my master and retrieve a released update and update themselves and save your work from having to
Hmm.
do it individually. Cool. All right.
Oh,
Well,
oh, that's really slick that we could work that out and make that happen.
just to take the time, and this is
Yeah.
some maybe sums up the low code experience a little bit. I was I was starting to help this client on this find action by ID concept of trying to explain where in SQL to find, look at this table for this and look at this table for that. And at some point it gets beyond, okay, instead of explaining the process, let's build a tool. And so
Yes,
there's that
definitely.
experience of when do you cross the line from just giving a
Hmm.
quick answer to, uh, yeah, this is complex. Let's just do it once and for all.
I can see that for you in particular, that would be very useful to have that tool.
Well,
And anyone
hopefully,
who's, managing multiple websites would want that too, but not everybody does,
yep.
a lot of people just one.
Um, so I'll throw out there if you ever want to play with the proof of concept of um, that thing, you could install this form plugin module from Campfire onto your system and then retrieve the things that I've published out there. I won't. They're they're available for use, which I would think would be easier to install the form plugin one time rather than just pick a tool and
Hmm.
install it, and then you gotta do the next one anyway.
You have a lot of good tools out there, Dale.
Well, I keep collecting them, and I have to tell you, I go back to them when we. I mean, uh, even the find action by ID required me to hit a button. The find parent thing. Actually, I had to go hit the after go hit the find action button again after it. So I go look up your contribution. I mean, I love that those are out there. Saves having to rethink about it,
Hmm.
reinvent it. All right, well, so that's our Good Friday episode. That was 55 minutes. We didn't skimp at all.
Right.
We will be back at it next week, and hope you will join us then. See you then.
Thanks, Dale.